Can good design shape a better world? At Monocle's Quality of Life conference in Barcelona this September, we'll be putting that question to the people who already are. Join leading designers, architects, and creative leaders as we explore how design intersects with culture, business, and everyday life. Plus, great food, excellent company, and plenty of Catalan charm. Find out more and book your seat at monocle.com/conference.
This is Monocle on Design, a show where we discuss everything from architecture and craft to furniture and graphic design. I'm Nick Manise. On today's program, at London's Design Museum, we ponder how we can address problems that go beyond human need. In Lisbon, we visit the Branca furniture showroom. Plus, Australian designer Bolaji Teniola shares how Isamu Noguchi helped inspire lamps made from timber shavings. All that coming up on Monocle on Design. Hello and welcome to today's program. We start off at the Design Museum in London. Here, its latest exhibition, More Than Human, looks at how design can help our planet thrive by shifting focus away from people-centric problems. The showcase uses art, science and radical thinking to address problems that are, well, more than human. Monocle's Henry King visited the exhibition to find out more.
When you think of design, what springs to mind? Perhaps an Eames lounge chair, a polished marble statue, or the new Monocle website. All these are designed with humans at the centre, an ethos that the co-curators of More Than Human, Rebecca Lewin and Justin McGurk, set out to challenge in an exhibition covering kelp councils to mushroom tables. I sat down with both of them to get an understanding of their combined eco-vision for design.
It's an exhibition that tries to examine where we have reached and how we think about what design is as a discipline, and to challenge that. Trying to look for new ways of storytelling, new kinds of narrative, new kinds of approach, even new applications of materials, in such a way that accounts for the needs not just of humans but also of the species that we live alongside. Design has a huge part to play and a responsibility in shifting its relationship to other species. And there's a huge potential there as well, which we want to explore.
While design has done a huge amount to improve the quality of life for humans, it has had a huge effect on the planet, on the climate, on the environment. And what we're exploring is what it might look like if designers started to factor in other perspectives, the perspectives of other living beings, of natural ecosystems, into their work. And once you do that, it completely destroys this idea that humans are somehow distinct or separate from the living world, and that the environment is just there for us to extract from so that we can make our stuff. I think the show really brings this idea to life. I mean, it brings together 50 artists, architects and designers, more than 140 different works, all exploring this idea that design, art and architecture can make a difference when it comes both to, the way we see the world, rebuilding our relations to the living world. So it's not just about doing a little bit less of this, a little bit less concrete, a little bit less carbon, a little bit less plastic. It's about really completely reframing the way in which we see the world and our place in it. And for us, that's a huge paradigm shift, and I truly hope, it will come to define design in the 21st century.
And Rebecca, just before we started recording, you were talking about this gorgeous piece of an octopus with glass. What are some of the examples across this exhibit that show this rebalancing between animals and humans in design?
The project mentioned is a project by a Japanese artist called Shimabuku. Even the context behind that work is a great example of the kinds of shifts that we're talking about. He'd made a series of works that responded to the behaviour of octopuses, and he realised that they collect particular objects, that they are attracted to certain colours and certain forms. And so rather than creating things that they might hide in or be caught in, he created this group of glass baubles that he then observed an octopus playing with. And that interaction, that sense of, well, actually, what might I be able to do for the enjoyment or the pleasure or the survival of another species, really embodies this shift in thinking.
As you enter the exhibit, you're greeted with a nature calendar made by the artist and ornithologist Marcus Coates. Here you can check what date events of the natural world occur on, for example, your birthday. On the 5th of November, autumnal leaf tinting is usually the best. On the 17th of the same month, hedgehogs go into hibernation until April. Walking through the collections, there's ancient passive fishing nets, basketry by the Yakuana tribe in the Amazon, and plant pots made of terracotta shaped into fuel cans. And this is where I caught up with their maker, Johanna Seelman.
So I researched watering systems that I could use in the urban area and landed on a very old technique that has actually been used already by the old Greeks and the Romans, which is like in-ground clay pitcher irrigation. And it means that you take a ceramic vessel and you fill it with water and you bury it in the ground and it contains the water. And compared to other watering systems where the water would either evaporate or eventually sink too deep, they would just store it, and the plants would grow towards those containers with their roots, and they would pull out the water whenever they need it. And then that project, like for what concerns the shapes, it's been historically more of like a classic round vessel. I wanted to kind of speak about this tension and this kind of like conflict of interests, and what are trees for us in the city? Are they street furniture, or they're actually living beings instead? So I wanted to play on this idea of the fuel tank compared with this watering container. So those watering tanks take on the shapes that are inspired by fuel tanks.
There's something quite ironic about the fact that they're petrol tanks fueling humans' industrialization, and yet these carry water for the organic environment.
Right.
And for trees and plants, it's their fuel as well.
Indeed. And that's basically it. It's quite simple. So the idea is that it's a gesture, right? So of course, like those containers won't solve it all, but it's about a certain mindset and an awareness of that we're not the only inhabitants of the city.
One of the standout exhibits displayed is Alexandra Daisy Ginsberg's digital tapestry, titled Pollinator Pathmaker. The work is an explosion of distorted floral hues and plant greens. I caught up with Alexandra in front of the over 7 metre wide canvas and asked how humans and insects would see this piece differently.
So the tapestry is a utopian proposition. What have we made or remade the world for other species? And it takes us through what this living artwork, if it were planted outside, would look like if you were an insect, or it tries to get us into the Umwelt, into the animal experience. So the colours, as you say, are distorted. They're taking us through the journey of an insect approaching a field of flowers, and the particular distortion was informed by scientific research, which opened my eyes into how my experience of the world is just one of many, many experiences. I'm unique, but I'm not special because, for example, bees can't see the colour red, but they can see ultraviolet. Butterflies, many of them can see red as well, green, blue, and ultraviolet. So looking at a field of flowers looks completely different if you are a different organism. The tapestry has this distorted colour perception. It also has this element of scale. Imagine flying into your dinner. What would it be like if you're a bee suddenly faced with an algorithmically designed superabundance rather than a human aesthetically curated garden of neat white flowers gracefully tumbling over the edge of a path? Instead, everything has been chosen and selected for its benefit to you. And that's what I want the visitor experiencing this artwork to feel like as they come in to the tapestry. What does it feel like to have all of this in your face? And what is the aesthetic experience of a bee or a butterfly?
And talking about going closer and going into the tapestry, as we actually approach it, we can start to see fibres and the different materials that you've created this tapestry with. Could you talk us through some of the different options that you considered when making it?
Pollinator Pathmaker is a digital artwork. It's an algorithm at its heart. But this is a different kind of exploration, and it's really looking also at how digital artwork can manifest not on a screen. Pollinator Pathmaker exists fabricated in plants, and here we have it in wool and silk and cotton in the form of a pixelated screen of sorts, but it's a soft screen. So a loom is creating this pixelated weave, and then I'm translating my digital paintings of each plant, which I do on an iPad, into our software, flying through that world, and then translating that into the 256 colours available to me from the loom itself. And then there's this level of craft, so even though we're working on a digital loom, it's not hand-woven tapestry. There are all these elements of texture and depth that you can begin to play with, and binding to help play with sort of softening this world. We have this unbounded garden except for just the edges of the tapestry. It's spilling over. And so the softness and the ability of textile and fibres to remind us of the natural world, to take us away from the screen and to think about how a digital artwork can manifest differently is what's, for me, so important in this exploration as an artist.
Leaving the exhibition with an updated understanding of how bees see their food, an aversion to all-white flower borders, and perhaps more importantly, increased consideration of the natural world. That evening, I see a couple of urban foxes in leafy northwest London. Having thoroughly moved into our very human cities, I wonder, how could we design for them too? Pockets of urban woodland, maybe a fox hotel. For Monocle in London, I'm Henry King.
More Than Human is on at the Design Museum in London until the 5th of October 2025. To Australia next, and the studio of Bolaji Teniola. The Adelaide-based interdisciplinary designer puts material exploration at the heart of his practice, working at the intersection of art, craft and design. Starting out with an interest in sneaker design, the creative studied industrial design and later furniture. Bolaji also has a curatorial strand, producing group exhibitions as part of Melbourne Design Week and Design Biennale Rotterdam, and even curating his own showcase called Reflections of Home. Let's join Bolaji as he discusses his inspiration and explore his means of making vessels and lighting from timber shavings.
Within Australia, I'm more known for working with timber shavings, which are derived from offcuts. And these are hand-planed shavings that I plane myself and then use these shavings combined with either a found object as a mold or a mold that I make myself to form different sculptural forms, which has developed into lighting as well. The origin of that particular use stems from my studies, where I took notice of the waste that was accumulating in the workshop and just trying to figure out how to make use of that waste. The shavings drew my eye because of how they coiled and unfurled, the transparency of the material, and just the sheer amount of it that was produced at the time. So I collected these shavings, held onto them until the opportunity arose during Melbourne Design Week in 2022, where I had the chance to make use of them, play around with this material, create vessels. That received some positive feedback. And from that, the confidence grew to try and take this a bit further. I also make the adhesive as well. So it's an organic adhesive that I applied to the shavings to create sculptural forms. Through the development of these processes, it kind of naturally led to lighting because of how light passes through the material. The initial guide that I used as a jumping off point to work with the shavings was paper mache, as well as the Akari lamps by Simon Noguchi. Just getting a chance to observe how those iconic lamps are produced gave me a aha moment to trial and test the shavings in this way. Initially, they did fail, but from that, of course, there was a lot of things that I learned and was able to, over the years, develop my process, push it further. And working again with different species of timber, it's interesting to see how they react to the environment, how light passes through the various hues of the species of timber that I work with. Radiata pine, American black walnut, and European beech. The three that I mentioned plane quite well and produce workable strands, allow diffuse light a lot more effectively than other species that I trialed. I'm quite lucky to be working out of Adelaide at the moment. I tend to kind of follow the road of opportunity, as I like to say, so I've kind of roamed around to different places. Found my way here thanks to the Jam Factory, which is an arts, craft and design organization. And it's a space where they offer support, guidance, and I guess community to artists, designers, craftspeople of various disciplines, glass blowing, furniture design, or furniture, ceramics, jewelry, metal as well. With that, Adelaide has attracted a lot of top talents from around Australia who've all moved here for the program specifically. Thanks to that, you have a pretty strong community of artists, designers, and craftspeople. And the good thing about that is it's quite nice to be in a space where you have access to all of these talented creative people. You can share ideas, you can learn from each other, understand each of these disciplines a bit more. And there's also an opportunity to collaborate across these disciplines as well. I'm from Melbourne originally, and the design scene in Melbourne is quite strong. When I was based in Melbourne, I primarily focused on design, but now that I'm based in Adelaide, it opened my eyes to, I guess, the art and craft aspect of the creative industry as well. It has made me a lot more conscious with how I approach the making of my pieces, be more mindful about the quality of the work that I put out. Not to say that I was putting out rubbish before moving here, but because there's so much talented makers and artists and craftspeople, it makes you want to up your game, which is a really good thing. And it makes you want to hone your skills a lot more as well. Mid-century modern is, I guess, a touch point of mine and something that I refer to. Some people try and reject it and move away from it, but it still has a great influence within the industry, with a plethora of iconic designers of that era as well. Other than that, surveying the Australian design landscape and seeing all the amazing designers that are currently practicing, emerging and established, and just keeping track of what's happening in the scene. My preference of good design changes quite often, but the pieces that have stuck with me are the straw marquetry works by Adam Goodrum and Arthur Signor. I believe Adam Goodrum is based in Sydney and Arthur is currently based in Melbourne. Adam Goodrum is one of the most acclaimed contemporary furniture designers in Australia, and Arthur Signor is a fantastic straw marquetry craftsperson or artist. The intricacy and use of straw that adorns their furniture and their use of colour as well is quite striking.
Bolaji Teniola there, and some lovely sounds from his workshop too. Finally on today's show, we head to Lisbon to visit the showroom of Branca, a Portuguese brand specialising in contemporary furniture, pairing local know-how and traditional craftsmanship. The practice is run by Sousa Santos, and it's his work that was explored at an exhibition presented during Lisbon Design Week. Called Chairman, 15 Years of Chairs by Marco Sousa Santos, the retrospective celebrated and detailed the evolution of Marco's body of work, viewed through his production of chairs. It featured 50 of Marco's designs, showcasing various explorations in material and form. This show's producer, Maylee Evans, went along to meet Marco at his Branca showroom.
15 years ago, I made this exhibition, and this exhibition was just about chairs, okay? And this was the beginning of my brand in 2009, but then in 2011 I launched the brand with this collection. In fact, it only lasts 3 or 4 pieces of this. There were about, 90 chairs. This is a magazine, Frame magazine. They made this article about my exhibition 15 years ago, and the name of it was Chairman. So I took this and I said, okay, chairman. Actually, I'm a chairman because I have my own company. I'm not the CEO because I don't like the word. I prefer to be the chairman. I'm joking, but in fact, it's my company. It's a funny thing, and that's why I choose chairman for this. I realize I have so many chairs that I could do an exhibition just about chairs.
Have you counted how many chairs?
Actually, I don't. No, but I think it's 38, but then there are a lot of derivatives. Yeah, it's 50 more or less. Each one has his own story. It's not the quantity that really matters here, because if you analyze each of the chair, you understand the approach of it. These are normal chairs, okay, you can sit, we sell it. I'm not experimenting new ways of sitting, but each chair have a lot of mental and emotional approach on design.
So are some of these available in Branca at the moment and some you're pulling from the archives? What's the mix of on the show?
Mix, yeah. Some of are coming from the archive and I don't sell them anymore, just because they are very expensive or people don't like them, and I'm in the market. I'm a self-produced designer, so I create this brand. I have been doing serious business with design, which is wonderful for a designer.
You've started up this brand. How have you seen the industry change in that time, and are people interested in certain ways of living, or do they gravitate towards certain designs? As you say, you're not looking to do experimental for the sake of it. You're producing chairs that are sturdy, that are something you can have in your house, not just something to look at. It's practical.
However, they are beautiful.
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah. and I always make the switch, and I always try to surprise. I'm not just doing chairs for the market. Each of the chair is because I want to explore this kind of approach to this kind of material, to this kind of way of sitting.
You're running the company, you're producing things at scale, you've got all your chairs here. What's your response when you have 15 years worth of work in one place? What's your reflection on that?
This is part of the work, because I have a lot of sofas, I have a lot of tables, I have small tables, side tables, shelves. What I feel 15 years after this entrepreneurship, what I feel after these 15 years of work with Branca, is that actually I had a lot of fun. I'm having fun. I'm doing what I like. And I'm learning also a lot with these producers and with these woodworkers that teach me a lot. If you look into the moments and if you see how designers are approaching furniture nowadays, it's a little bit weird, because you can do whatever you want because technology is here. But sometimes you just do one-offs just because. And I think design was invented by the human being to organize industry, to produce beautiful and good products for people to use. And that's the point of design. It's not to make very weird or very strong objects that are very heavy, but they are in the context of a trend. Designers should avoid that, should come back a little bit to what is essential on design, which is people, sustainability, because if it's a good design, it's sustainable. to not waste too much material. And you see some of the latest chairs and benches are made of blocks of wood. And you say, I would do 20 chairs with this block of wood. That is simply a seat. The good design is everywhere where we do it. If you Paul Paulin, it's a good design without being very essential. It's a great experiment of life. One thing that is very important is that I find myself visiting the producers in north of Portugal, and not only in the north. My main producer is next to Sintra, which is very close from us. But I find myself finding the skills of these people being wasted in horrible furniture. I've been working with these different people, some very small, other very big, but in a mutual learning on the importance of the factories, learn how to develop good connections, good designs, go on making money with it, making money with design, also for the producers. It's very important that we find the people that sometimes learn with us and then teach us in the other way, teach us how to design wood, how to make connections, wood joinery. And this is a world that I've been discovering all this period of 15 years.
Marco Sousa Santos there, in conversation with this show's producer, Maylee Evans. And that's all for today's show. For more design stories, listen to our 5-minute midweek bonus show, Monocle on Design Extra, which airs on Thursdays. And if you enjoy print, then do pick up a copy of Monocle magazine as well. It's on all good newsstands now. Today's episode was produced and edited by Maylee Evans, with editing assistance from Hunter Wang. I'm Nick Manise. Thanks for listening.